or is it because of the impact of the pharmacy, and the economics behind that? How do you look at it?
It's very popular for the pharmacology industry conspiracy to sell more drugs to get more people medicated. I'm not convinced there's like this global conspiracy, but I do think what I see with clinicians, there's a need for people to be significant in their field.
Okay.
So to discover something, to make something new, to create a new label, a new diagnosis, to make a new criteria.
Right.
Now, when we have a field of tens of thousands of clinicians,
right,
all trying to be eminent in their field, with a new discovery, with a new breakthrough, with the latest thing, we're always going to be moving the boundaries.
So would you say that it's a shortcut for someone to come into limelight, to become famous?
Oh, invent a new disorder.
Okay.
Get it written up in the newspapers. Maybe then find a drug to treat the disorder.
That's what.
I mean, there's new disorders appearing every year in the mental health field.
Yeah.
There are things, oppositional defiance disorder.
Okay.
I mean, before that was treated with discipline.
Okay.
Now that gets treated with medication and counseling.
So what do you think about ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder?
Well, there was a time when there wasn't any ADHD.
That's what.
And now there's lots of it.
Yeah, that's what.
Where did it come from?
Yeah, I'm just wondering.
Maybe this is humans mutating.
Okay.
Maybe this is what's going on. Or maybe there's a bias towards certain clinicians looking for these things.
Right.
Now, parents are taught what these things look like.
Right.
So they see the signs in their child.
Mm-hmm.
I've been presented children with ADD, ADHD, oppositional defiant disorder.
Okay.
And I just see a normal child.
Right.
I remember an interview I had with one family. I said to the parents, at any time in the past hour, were there any signs or symptoms of attention deficit disorder? And they looked at me and said,
no.
Yeah. It's ever since we arrived, our child has been demonstrating attention deficit disorder. And I failed to see it. I could not see what they were seeing.
Okay.
Well, then I have a different background, a different education, a different expectation.
Yeah.
I'm conditioned differently.
Could be bias. Okay. Okay, Nick, another important thing is that suppose when he's anxious, what is the intervention? How that you would like to move ahead? Suppose you've got a person having anxiety disorder. How will you go about,
Well, first, the question for me is what's happening internally in the person's head. How are they thinking and what are they thinking to create the anxiety? And I've seen, like Andy, I've seen lots of different people. I saw one of the top health specialists from another country who wrote on his client notes he had had 1,500 counseling sessions.
Okay.
And I said, this has got to be a mistake. There's no way, you're only 38 years old, you'd have to be seeing people, 2 or 3 people every week. And he said, yeah, I have. So he analyze often is not the best solution.
Meaning indirectly, I suppose you're referring to psychoanalysis.
The main thing, one of the main things I find that is the cause of anxiety is the way in which people think to themselves.
So something to do with cognition.
So it's the manner. So I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I was on BBC Radio in England, and I had somebody come on who had a total phobia of being on the aeroplane.
Okay.
So I say to him, when you think at the moment about being on the aeroplane, what's the whole thing like? So I can get information from him. Otherwise I could be guessing.
Right.
He says, I imagine being on the plane, and I'm thinking, I would love to be on an aeroplane.
Okay.
And he thinks to himself, in his head, oh my God, the plane's going to crash. In an anxious tone of voice. That anxiety message goes to his nervous system from his brain. He starts to feel anxiety in his stomach. Now he starts to think, oh, now I'm feeling more anxious. This process continues. Now even the thought of a plane he won't go on. So a lot of the time it's the way in which people think and what they think.
So would you suggest that cognitive intervention would be a better, it's an effective tool for anxiety management?
I've not used cognitive intervention. I've a process that I use called the voice tempo exercise, which will show tomorrow as a demonstration, where literally you change the speed and the tone of how the person thinks. Because it's not the content, it's the way in which they think.
It's the form.
It's the way. If you and I were on an aeroplane, and the pilot said we're flying at 30,000 feet, and he then said, "Oh my God, we're all going to die." If we heard this externally, we would respond in the same way as the guy who thought it in his head. So it's a way of changing it so it's appropriate for the situation.
Right.
That's one of the triggers. But you can't just get an anxiety is a feeling.
Okay.
You can't just get the feeling.
Okay.
You have to have some mental process which triggers it.
That's right.
So it's one of a few things.
Okay. And another thing, just like this one, I'm asking you, for depression, what is the tool that you can give as an intervention?
When it's serious and there's all the clinical signs and symptoms,
Right.
the modern medication is
Right.
fantastic for some
Yeah,
people.
right, true.
For many people,
you made to say that it's endogenous biological.
where there's signs and symptoms. So
Right.
there's the cognitive retardation, there's
Yeah.
the parasympathetic.
Sleep disturbed,
Right.
appetite disturbed.
For the physical signs, the
Right.
medication is fantastic.
True.
But the person will still feel miserable.
Yeah.
They won't go, oh, I'm taking the medication, I'm so happy, my
Yeah.
life works.
Right.
They may well be free of those clinical signs,
Okay.
but they may well still have quite. I like to look at two main areas. How do they live their life?
Okay.
For some people, their lifestyle is pretty depressing.
Okay.
I sometimes will do a home visit, and I look at their house, I look at how they live, I look at how they're treated by their family or how they treat their family,
Right.
if indeed they live with anybody.
Mhm.
And I think, if I lived this life, I think I would be pretty depressed.
Okay.
So changes there, sometimes employment issues.
Okay.
Some people are just in a career or
Right.
an occupation, they just don't like it. It doesn't suit them.
Mm.
Which for me leads very much into identity. Who are they? And are they living their life? Or are they living the script that they were handed as a child,
Okay.
and they're desperately trying to make it work?
So would you suggest that sometimes there's a need to edit the script? Would you say that sometimes there's a need to edit the script?
Oh yes,
Mm.
oh yes,
Okay.
a lot, and some people need a lot of editing.
Okay.
I'll look at people's lives and I'll say to them, does it surprise you that you're depressed?
Right.
People so rarely say no.
Mhm.
Some people go, yeah, it does surprise me. Oh, actually, now we start looking at it like this, maybe I shouldn't be surprised. So then we can start looking at, okay, what changes do they make? And much like Nick was saying, then we can look at how are they thinking, what are the internal processes,
Right.
and actually look at how they can make changes there.
Right. Okay. എന്തായാലും സാധാരണഗതിയിൽ ഉത്കണ്ഠയ്ക്കും വിഷാദത്തിനും നമ്മൾ മരുന്നോ മനഃശാസ്ത്രമോ എപ്പോഴും ശ്രദ്ധിക്കാറുണ്ട്. ഇവരുടെ രണ്ടുപേരും ചിന്തകൾ വ്യക്തമാക്കുന്ന പോലെ മരുന്നിനും മനഃശാസ്ത്രത്തിനും അപ്പുറം ഒരുപക്ഷെ ജീവിത ശൈലിയിൽ ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്ന മാറ്റങ്ങളും വിഷാദവും ഉത്കണ്ഠയും ഇല്ലാത്ത ജീവിതം തിരഞ്ഞെടുക്കുവാൻ സഹായിക്കുമായിരിക്കും. നമ്മുടെ തന്നെ ജീവിതത്തിൽ തിരക്കഥയ്ക്ക് ഒരു മാറ്റം, ആ മാറ്റത്തിന് വേണ്ടിയാണ് ഇവരുടെ വാക്കുകൾ. നമുക്കത് സ്വീകരിക്കാം. ഈ പരിപാടിയിൽ പങ്കെടുത്ത രണ്ടുപേർക്കും നന്ദി, നമസ്കാരം.
Thank you.
Yeah.
തീർന്നല്ലേ? ക്ലോസ്.
Oh, you got it.
Secondly,
Yeah, notice, yeah.
That's all. So I suppose you're well experienced about
We've done this before.
where you did it in India or
In
it's-
England.
Okay. Right?
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a fascinating subject.
It's okay, carry
It's
on.
so
Don't worry about me.
universally,
Yes,
it
sir.
applies the
Yeah, I'm
world
so
over.
happy that I was wondering, will we be having a common thread by which we all will get connected? Now
Yeah.
I knew that we
Yeah.
have got many common threads.
And all ages and all backgrounds and all cultures, you know, it's the same.
Irrespective of the color of the skin, human beings are same anyway.
Yeah.
That's what I think. We don't have much of a difference. It's
No.
only the color what makes difference, but otherwise, the psyche and the pain and the anguish,
Yeah.
which is same,
Suffer,
yeah, people suffer, that's the reality. Now, producer of this program is Mr. Rajiv from
Yes, sir.
Hi,
And thank you for having us.
thank you for having us, yes, it's been a real pleasure.
Yeah,
That was very
so
good.
tomorrow we will meet in the morning.
We will see you in the
Yeah,
morning,
Looking forward
yes.
to it.
Yeah.
Thank